This is Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Mem Beis. We'll learn for this month, the month of Teves, as we wrap up the month of Teves, has been generously sponsored by a close friend of the Daf as Zchos Alias Neshama for Rabbi Aryeh ben Rav Ya'akov B'siyata D'Shmaya, the Koyach HaTorah, which knows no bounds, should continue being an incredible Alias Neshama, as well as a Milatz Yesher for the entire Mishpacha. As well as learning should be an incredible schos refuah shleima for Tinaik ben Mir Mahuva. We should continue seeing Nisim ben Eflois b'siyata d'shmaya, culminating in an ultimate and complete refuah shleima gemura. We're holding towards the bottom of Mem Aleph Amid Beis, two dots, Echad Oimer, quoting the Mishnah that if we have a debate between the Eidim, one says who's on the second of the month, one said it's on the third of the month. Said the Mishnah, such a discrepancy in Eidos can indeed be chalked up to not knowing about Iber Chaydash, and therefore it is a good Eidos. Says the Gemara, Ad Kama, until how many days can we assume and chalk up a discrepancy in the Eidim as due to Iber, due to just not knowing the calendar? Amr Rav Acha bar Chanina, Amr Rav Asi, Amr Rav Yechanan, Ad Rubai Shel Chaydash, until most of the month, till the majority of the month has passed. But if they testify after the majority of the month has passed, then it's impossible that they don't know yet that there was an Iber, and therefore their Eidos is puzzle. Amar Rava, says Rava, Avananami Tanina, I as well learn. 3 and 5, it's no good. And what's the reason? Why do we say one knows about two? One knows about one Iber. Elalav, you know why? There must be that we assume that most of the month has passed. If he knew that the previous month was such, and to think that one does not know two different months, says the Gemara, that is too much. And that's the reason why, if it's 3 and 5, suggests the Gemara, that's why it will not be a good Eidah. Says the Gemara, no Raya. You know what I'll tell you? Says the Gemara, really, I'll tell you that Raiv, most of the month has passed. Even then, they do not know. So why, if there's a 2-day discrepancy, do we assume, that a dusam betela? Ubeshipura yada, because you usually know of the shofar sounding announced the new month. And therefore, b'chad shipura, one shofar amar detai, b'trei shipura la amar detai. So a 2-day discrepancy cannot be, says the Gemara, because to assume that he doesn't know back to back that there was an Iber month, that can't be. It's not normal to mess up 2 months in a row. Continues the Gemara of Amar Rav Acha bar Chanina, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yechon. Ad kama mivarchen al chaydesh. Once we're on the theme of Iber Chaydesh, says the Gemara, Ad kama varchen al chaydesh. Until how much can we make the bracha on the new moon? It says the Gemara, Ad shetit malei pegima sa, until the pegima, until that which it's lacking is full. Says the Gemara, shkoyach v'kamo, and how much is that? Amar Rav Yaakov Aridi, Amar Rav Yehuda, Ad Shiva, that is till the 7 days into the month. Nardaya Amri teaches Nardai, no, Ad Shisha Asar, until 16 days into the month. And we turn over to Membei's Amid Aleph, says the Gemara, V'teravayu, and both of these opinions, Ki Rav Yechanan Svira Lahu. Whether we're talking about if it is 7, or whether we're talking about if it is 16, Shisha Asar or Shiva, they're both going within the opinion of Rav Yechanan. What is this opinion of Rav Yechanan? Says the Gemara on the top of Membeis Amid Aleph. How do they both hold like Rav Yechanan? Ha lemahave ki asra, ha lemahavre ki nafya. Says the Gemara, the difference is that the bracha on the new moon is not said after the crevice becomes full. When the machlekes is, when is that? According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's when the moon becomes half full, like a bowstring. According to the Nahardai, it's when it's like a round sleeve, sieve. Says the Gemara, if you're telling me you can't be Mevarich L'Chaydesh after it is not considered a new moon, says the Gemara, you should still be able to make a bracha, meaning if you miss the requisite date, there should still be something you could do. Amar Lei, Ravina responds, Atu ki chasar mi mevarchinan. Dayina emes. Are you going to say that when the moon is diminishing in size, you can make the bracha of Dayina emes? Tilvarech hatoiva meitiv. Says Ravina, it's not the way it works. It's not just something good. You say hatoiva meitiv. So if you miss berachas hachodesh, you could like plug in hatoiva meitiv. Ravina almost asked rhetorically, it can't be. On the flip side, you don't make a Dayina emes. Says the Gemara, says the Gemara, Favos nisht. Let him say both. Let him say Atayva HaMeitiv, and let him indeed say Dayan Emes when the moon is diminishing. Says the Gemara, Kivan Dahainu Orchei Loi Mevarchinan. Since it's the way of the moon, it waxes and wanes, it grows and it diminishes, it would not be appropriate to make these two brachos. Says the Gemara of Amravacha Barchanin Amravasi Amrav Yechanan. Continuing the theme of Birchas HaChodesh Bismanoi. Skipped. Kol Mevarech HaChodesh Bismanoi Keilu Mikabel B'nei Shechina. Mayradik, if you're Mevarech the new moon in the right time, it's as if you're Mikabel the Shechina. Where do we see this from? Says Rav Acha Barchanin Amrav Yisrael Yechanan. So we see it's the beauty, it's the glory. It's as if you greeted the Shechina. This should sound familiar. We say this each and every month by Kiddush Levana. Then that would be enough if we just had the ability to praise Hashem once a month. Therefore we say, we're Mavarich the Chaydesh, we do Birchas Levana standing, and this is the Makar that Birchas Levana should be done standing, and of course is what we say each and every month. Continues the Gemara, I skipped. No, I didn't. What would they do? Even though they were elderly, they would be supported on the shoulders of others. They would make a point in standing up while being mavarich the chaydesh. Arm le Ravachal Ravashi b'marava mevarchi in the west in Eretz Yisrael. The bracha that they say was what mechadesh chadashim. Amar le hay nashi didan nami mevarchi. So he said, Ravashi said back that let's say something a woman could also say. Ela kid Rav Yehuda. Rather, like Rav Yehuda, the Amar Rav Yehuda Baruch Ata Hashem L'Kin Machlam Hashem B'Marav Baruch Shechem Baruch Pev Kol Tzavam Chalik Uzman Nasan Lohem Sheyishanu Es Tavkidam Satzum Zeichel Nasur Zekana B'Lam Zevon Emes V'Lavana Amar Shetis Chadesh Nefesh Samu Seibadu Nefesh Chadesh K'Maisa U'Lefaer Liyoitra Malshein Kavaydu Malchusai Baruch Ata Hashem Chadesh Chadashem. Hopefully that should sound familiar. That is indeed the text of Birchas Levana that we say each and every month. Continues the Gemara. Almost a random pasuk that teaches us by tachbulois, by the wise counsel, you shall wage war. With whom do you find the battle of Torah? B'mi bundles of what? Shall Mishnah of Mishnah. Much produce comes by the tevuah, the koyach of the shar, the strength of the ox. And with that, we move on to a new Gemara, continuing the Mishnah that we quoted, which is really going to slowly wrap up this parak. Another machlekes between the Eidim, whether it was in the second hour or the third hour. Said the Mishnah, Idusan Kayames, Amar of Simber Ashi Loishanu. 8 lines into the wide lines, Alashais, Aval Echanamer Kaidim Anitzacham, Echanamer Achanitzacham, Idusan Betila. If they're off by an hour, that's shaykh. But if they're in a different segment of the day, Kaidim needs, Achar needs, then no longer. Says Marv Shita. Echanamer Kaidim Neitz, Echanamer Betoicha Neitz, Hanam Shita. That we don't say that. It says, you know what the Havamina was? That maybe he saw the sun's rays and he thought it was already rising, meaning maybe he just made a mistake. Kamash Malan, that such a mistake is not made, and therefore we have a conflict in their testimonies about before Nates or during Nates, Edusan Betela. Quotes the Gemara of Acher Machnisin. After that, they admit the second Edim, and they asked, and then says the Mishnah, if one of the Talmidim says, I have something to say in favor of one of them, then he's elevated, and that Talmud is promoted. Says the Gemara, is he only elevated on that day to be the level of a Dayan and no more? He always continued to maintain the status, says the Gemara, of a Dayan. So why is our Mishnah mashma? It's only that day, says the Gemara. Continues quoting to that price. Says the Gemara, you know why? We don't want his aliyah to be his yerida. But what do we see? We see once he's elevated, he doesn't come down. So why are we saying he does that day? No, our Mishnah only meant if there's no mamish b'dvarav, that's when he comes down after that day. What's the reason that Adam can't drink wine? Amar Rav Acha, I apologize. Amar Rav Acha, Rachanina, Amar Karl, Uler Roizinim, Ishechar, Aiskim, Barzu, Leroizin Eishechar. The rulers of in wine is not fitting. What for there we darshin Aiskin. Those who deal with the secrets of the world. The Dayanim al Yishtakru. Continues the Gemara. Says the Gemara, what if they do not agree and come to a decisive vote? What do we do when we have bezin in a deadlock? The lacha is, if you can't find a reason to be machayiv, to convict someone, he automatically is acquitted. If that is true, says they'll let him say such from the start. So once they had, why do they have the debate back and forth? Why do they, once they have the first vote, which isn't conclusive, let them at that point acquit him? We don't want people to leave confused, not having an exact clarity. So we try our hardest to reach a decisive conclusion. Says the Gemara, you can down another lashon there, popular Abaya. Yosef of literary. Why do they add on Dayanim? Liftri mi beidina kama. When they already had 23 that were in a deadlock, why do they leave it out? Why do they elevate to 71, and then if it maintains in a deadlock, then we leave it. It's like Rav Yehuda. Tanya Rav Yossi, exchange it. Masifin al bezin shel shem echad. Kach ein malsifin al bezin shel aser mushleisha. Indeed, that's Rav Yossi held. Says Gemara Tana Rabbanan. Oy mer bedinim amnes nizdakin adin. Says the Gemara. Paltini mamnes, we're allowed to say the case is old. Bavin amradin nefashais. Nizdakin adin. What's nizdakin adin? My nizdakin adin. If you're telling me that means that it's too difficult, and therefore we're going to delay the monetary cases. It should be the exact opposite. Indeed, switch it around. Chacham Dina Nizakim Adin means the case was wisely decided that the Bryce is telling you that after they reach a verdict in a monetary case, they say this was a appropriate din Torah. Meisve, yes, the Gemara, Gadol Shabedayanim, Oimer Nizakin Adin. So, Chacham Dina. According to the second shot, that it means it's a Gavaldik Adin. Gavaldik Hanadamar Gadol. Eliyam Rekashdina Lo Sagid Lamer Gadol. Why are they saying that? He's calling his embarrassment. Answers Gemara in yes. We want the greatest iron to say this. We rather someone be embarrassed from himself than be embarrassed from others. We don't want to let someone come to an embarrassment from the matziv. Continues the Gemara Ika diamri, excuse me, 4 lines from the end of the parak. Yamri shamakash dina. If you're going to tell me that they say the case is difficult and delayed, hanu damri daimeh mitbaish mi'atzal, deinu daimeh mi'atzal, daimeh chayim, really amri chacham dina galo ashbuchei, ashavach navshei. But if you're telling me that it's chacham dina, is he saying a shvach to himself? Aksevi alucha zar. No one should ever praise himself. Says the Gemara, Shani Milsa Debei Dina. When it comes to judges, it's different. Why? The Gadol Ramya. Because the Gadol is the one that has to talk. He has to say the din. Because it's nan. Garmu Asadina Machlisa Gadol Shabatayanim Oimer. And therefore, because by his very nature, he is the Gadol, therefore, it is clear that the Gadol is the one that makes these rulings, and with that goes the fact that he could say that it was done appropriately, and we don't have to be worried. By Yalucha Zar V'loy Picha Hadjan Alach Loya Baitkin. We shall return to this incredible parak. Certainly, a Chazar is in store, and we dive headfirst into Amud Beis and Beis Amud Beis into the 6th parak. Continues the new parak Nigmar Hadin. And now we segue into the next part of the court proceedings, which is, okay, we have a verdict. Nigmar Hadin, a verdict has been reached. Someone is guilty, convicted to hariga, that Bezin has to kill him based on his crime. Still, they take him out to stone him. Beis Askila Chutz LeBezin is outside Bezin Shenemar. Says the Basik, you have to bring out the Mekalel. You have to bring out the blasphemer. One person stands at the door with flags in his hands. And there is a horse at a distance, but that they can see him. Amar Echad. One person says, if on the way out, as the horse is ready, we're about to escort him out to Skila, someone says, wait! He waves his flags. Wait, don't pick him up. So what happens? And now the horse leaves. And the horse races and stops them. Meaning there's this horse that is waiting to run, to stop them. Don't throw him off the cliff. And even if he himself says, wait, I have something to save myself. As long as his mamish, his words will bring him back and forth numerous times. Says the Gemara, Beis Askila Chutz LeBezdin. Says the Gemara, where was the Beis Askila? Was it really, Chutz LeBezdin Ave V'sulai? What does Chutz LeBezdin mean? It sounds like it's right outside the Bezdin. Is that really where it is? Well, Tanya, we learned in the Brayz, Beis Askila Chutz L'Shalosh Machanois. It's outside all 3 camps. Says the Gemara, in that is true, Kitagamrit. And that which the Mishnah said is outside of the Bezdin was to teach us as follows. Nafka mina di nafik. If the Bezdin were to be all the way outside the Shalosh Machanois, then Avdina Beis Askila Chutz LeBezdin, then the Beis Askila would have to even be further. Why? So Bezdin does not appear to be murderers. Inami or so the fact that there could be a rescuer. Says the Gemara, the fact that it's far away shows you have to travel there and gives you extra time. So the chiddush of the Mishnah is that even if Bezdin is far out, then the Beis Askila has to be even further. Says the Gemara, Menani Mili, Detan Rabba, Ana Noiti as a Makalel, El Machutz Lamachane, Chutz Legim Machnas, Atoimer, Chutz Legim Machnas, Eino Elo, Chutz Lemachanachas, Nemer Kan Mi Chutz Lemacham, Nemer Biporim, Anisrofim, Chutz Lemachane, Malahalon, Chutz Leshalish Machanois, Avkan Chutz Leshalish Machanois. Says more second of Hasaminalan. How do we know over there by the Parman Esrafin that it says, well, Chutz Shalosh Machnas Tanarabanim? We learned in a Brayz of Itzias Kol Hapar Almi Chutz Machnas Chutz Shalosh Machnas Adoimer Chutz Shalosh Machnas Ein El Chutz Machnachas Kishoimer on the pasuk says, El michotz lamachne bepara eda. Shein tamaleimer. We don't need to say that. Why? Shekvar Nem already says with the para eda of zarvazai. Keshav is the para rishon. Litzlei machne shini. That's a second machne. Kishoimer michotz lamachne with the dashet. Shein tamaleimer. You don't have to say that. Shekvar Nemar El Shavich Hadesh Yisrael. Therefore, says the Gemara, Litu Amachane Shlishis. So that's what we learn, that has to be outside all three camps. And similar is going to be over here by the person's getting skill of Leil Mishchutei Chutz. Asks the Gemara, why don't we learn out from Shutei Chutz that what? Why don't we learn it from there? A different makar, that it's only outside one camp. Says the Gemara, Mistavro, it's more logical. Mi parmenes rafim havalil milaf. Why? Shkein oitzi al mechutz lamachane. Cause it is taken outside the machane, machshir or mechaber, and it's something that also gives a kabara. So the Gemara, wait, Adra, mishut chutz havalil milaf. Why? Shkein adam chaytei b'neshama. Because it's a personal offense. Someone's chaytei b'neshama pigol. Person is sinner, life, and pigol. Says the Gemara, machshir mi machshir adav lei. Saying that prepares is more adif, says the Gemara. And that's the reason why. It's true that in some aspects it makes more sense to learn it from Shutei Chutz, but says the Gemara, for the fact that it's a preparation for a mitzvah is more similar, and that is the reason why the Gzeir Shava makes more sense to equate our din to the our din of skila to such. Therefore, we'll be outside all three camps, and we'll pick it up from Rapapa B'siyata Dishmaya.